And okay, good morning to friends, colleagues here in Australia, New Zealand. Good afternoon, good evening to those in Canada, the United States. I am Michael Haynes, SME Business Growth Specialist, and welcome to the live show Breaking Through in B2B. Breaking Through in B2B is a live show dedicated to business leaders, senior managers, and leaders of small and medium-sized service-based companies operating in the B2B space. Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome our special expert guest, Matt Zembrowski, who is founder of the Agile Game Changers in the US. Matt, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thank you for having me on. Love this opportunity.
Fantastic. It's really good to have you here. Really looking forward to our conversation today, Matt, about agile leadership and how to really make this, to explain to folks what it is, because it's something that, many of us as small, medium business owners have come across, seen this in the literature, heard experts talking about, but really want to use this episode today to really show how to bring it to life and how we can use it in our small businesses to really execute and drive growth. So first, before we kind of kick off and get on all of your richness, brilliance, can you tell our watchers, we're watching live, those who might be watching the recording, a little bit about yourself, Matt, and how you came to do what you do and why you do what you do?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Really, really glad to be here. And I created, so my background is in engineering and technical project management. And then eventually it went into when things moved from project management into the agile space about 15 plus years ago, the terms changed, but it's still the same stuff. You still want to help teams get better, help companies get better. So they started saying Scrum Master would be the team coach. That's the term out there for those of the people not familiar with it. And then there were other terms as an agile coach, where you're coaching, different parts of the organization. So eventually, that's where I went from a corporate perspective. From an entrepreneurial perspective, I've been constantly engaging in the space of agile, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, and networking and building a really strong community of practice through my LinkedIn network, so I could really keep my finger on the pulse and see how I could best serve the community of agile professionals out there to help agile professionals succeed more. So I put people first, in companies. Some companies doing well, some companies are struggling, but the people are the glue. The people are at the center of what really makes companies work well. And if you get the right people in the right companies and people feel good about that, it tends to work very well. So over the last few years, I created my company, Agile Game Changers, but I didn't offer anything big or out there. I did a lot of experimentation, a lot of talking with the market. And what I found out is that most of the challenge, I wanted to find out how can I best serve that market? Most of the challenge was around people who, agile professionals, scrum masters, product owners, developers, business analysts, systems analysts, a lot of people who are in the agile professional space these days. A lot of the agile professionals were having trouble accelerating their careers, whether they were out of work trying to get a new job, or whether they were in a job and they wanted to get promoted or get promoted more quickly, or move into a new position or new role, like from a scrum master to a product owner, things like this that are seen as promotions in an organization. There's a lot of struggle there, and it was also going a lot more slowly than it could have gone. So I leaned in there, started helping a number of these individuals, and it's been a lot of fun. We're continuing to grow and expand our service offering and what we're doing.
That's fantastic, Matt. So, Matt, want us to kind of start to dive in and delve and get into it. But to really kick things off, what exactly is agile leadership? Again, as I mentioned in the intro, it's a term, many of us have here buzzing around, and we hear the various terms agile. You've talked about scrum masters, product owners. Can you first give us, the layman's definition, for those of us, as to what exactly is agile leadership?
Yeah, agile leadership, and different people define this in different ways. So if you think of the two words, agile and leadership, most people are familiar with what leadership means, what their perception of that. When I define agile leadership, it's about leadership in an agile organization and in an agile way. So what do I mean by that? Not every organization is agile. Agile organizations are organizations that are really focused on being able to adapt and grow through change, versus just being challenged with the change and having to shut down their businesses or struggle through the change and things like that. We live in a world of ever increasing change around us, and a great example of a significant change is the pandemic that started up back in 2020, and we went through that for a few years. That took out some companies. It accelerated some companies, right? So why did that happen? What I've seen is agile leadership, again, being a good leader in an agile organization, but leading in an agile way. So leading in an agile way means being able to be adaptable, coachable, and malleable as a leader. So you're changing your approach, but you're always leading by example, putting people first, and leading with integrity. So that was a lot of words. It may not have been in the exact layman's definition, but I would say just break the two words up separately. It's leadership in an agile organization in an agile way.
Excellent. Great, great definition, which I think all of our viewers, listeners will be able to relate to. So Matt, now really I want to try and take this one step further and really try to put it into context for folks. So as we discussed before, I want to use a live scenario. One of my clients being so we got a financial services company. The company actually has really small company, 25 key employees, and they're really starting from a blank slate. And I thought this would be a great example because it can help really demonstrate how do we really put Agile into practice. So the scenario I want to take, have you to discuss and take our listeners through. Financial services company, 25 people. They're looking to launch a new consumer finance product. And so they're really starting from ground zero. They're in their ideation phase. So really looking to develop this whole new product, and then they have to take it to market. And we're really starting from a blank slate, Matt, in terms of going to be having to look at developing the product, for which we're doing market research right now, to really understand, how the solution, this consumer finance solution, is actually going to look and feel, and how it's going to be positioned. There's going to be all the technology elements that are going to have to be set up for this, everything from CRMs, email systems, to all your back-end systems for origination, credit checks, reporting. Then there are all the things on what I like to call on the revenue ops side in terms of marketing, sales, service, and support. All those elements have to be set up. So this is the scenario: small business, 25 people, core small leadership team, about 5 or 6 people, that they really have to kick this off. So my first question to you, Matt, to really help bring context of how we're going to leverage Agile to bring this product to life to drive growth, is my first question is, how would we use, in terms of, as the leadership team, in terms of using Agile leadership principles, in terms of setting up the teams, they're going to have to be responsible around some of these key areas around product development, technical setup, the whole marketing, sales, etc. What are some principles, or how would we apply Agile in first setting up the teams to really take this initiative off? What are some of the things that a small business, as I've just described, need to be thinking about and doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. And again, from a startup perspective, I've worked at startups and also advised startups too. And that's very much what the situation is. As you're saying, you're starting from ground zero. You're doing the marketing research and so forth. You have your core team there. So what you think about when you think about agile leadership in an organization such as you're talking, there's two sides to it. In the Scrum Agile world, they talk about the product owner cycle and they talk about the Scrum Master cycle of activity and teams, etc. So if you think about the product side, that's where you're very familiar with. You've been doing the market research. What's the vision for the product? Like, what are we trying to accomplish in the market? How are we going to impact customers' lives? How do we believe we're going to impact customers' lives? Right, and that's your space. I know you're brilliant at that area and understanding that. That's the seed that starts it. So once you know enough about what you want to launch into the marketplace, It sounds like that particular situation, you're pretty close to it. So it's like, okay, this is how we're going to affect change in the market. This is how we're going to bring a product to market. And the essence of the product is going to impact customers' lives this way. Once that vision is clear enough, then that's the spark that lights everything up. What you want to do now, for that particular group, is you want to say, okay, what does our first delivery team look like to start building the system and the product and the infrastructure? As you mentioned, there's tools, there's systems development for the applications, for whatever you need to develop to start engaging. So you want to get those people together for a team. And in agile leadership, in agile in general, they talk about self-organizing teams. So if you think about that, it's probably a lot to digest as you get into it. But self-organizing team means you want that team to be able, you want to be able to share the vision with this delivery team, and then let the delivery team drive their success to deliver this on their own. And if something gets in their way, the scrum master or somebody in the middle will say, hey, this is in the way of the team. So with the way this is set up, especially from a startup, this works very, very well, is the team gets clear on the vision because the product owner or yourself or whoever is representing the vision of the product shares it with the team. And maybe in the beginning, your team is just 2 people. Maybe there's 3 people, right? Maybe there's a developer, maybe there's a business analyst, maybe there's a systems analyst, maybe a quality engineer. It depends on how you're configured, how much development work is there, how much tools work is there. But you have a delivery team that comes together. Ideally, you'd put a scrum master with that delivery team, and that scrum master, it's a weird word, but that's the word they use in the industry. You can think of it as a team coach. If you think of like a coach of a football team, or a coach of or a teacher in a classroom, that's the role of the scrum master. You're the coach, you're the guide, you're the one who holds the mirror up to the team and be able to help the team go faster and be happier in the journey. So I'm saying a lot, but the two concepts that I think about and keep in mind, Michael, when you do set up your first team, your first delivery team, is when you get your scrum master in place, how can that, and this is what the scrum master thinks of every day when they get out of bed, how can that team move faster? And how can we, faster teams, happier people? How can our people be happier in the process? It's not about burning people out and so forth, but it's about how can we help that team get started from zero, start to deliver something of value. All right, and I'll just say one more thing. There's a lot of aspects to it, but I'll say one more thing that's important. Fast feedback loops with your customer. Because again, remember the product vision that you're clear on, we're going to change the world and change the customer's life in XYZ, and when this product comes to market. Therefore, as we build it, we want to test that hypothesis, right?
Okay.
So we want to work in fast feedback loops. We want to build something that the customer can look at and start to taste and start to experience, and then get feedback from the customer. Maybe they'll say, wow, that was really cool, or that didn't really do anything for me. I don't know what the big deal is here. So you want to start to get pieces of your product, pieces of your vision delivered or shared with the customer, end customer, stakeholder, whoever it is, as close to the person's life who you want to change, the better. You want to get their real feedback and bring that back in.
Okay, so that's great, Matt. I want to circle back a little bit to some of the things you just talked about. So, all right, so first things when you're having an initiative, you share the vision with that delivery team. And then as part of the delivery team, you want to have that Scrum Master. So just to kind of clarify for my own edification and for our listeners, so the Scrum Master, is that person the project manager, project leader that is coordinating some of these activities? Or is this Scrum Master a person in addition to some of those members of the product delivery team, which I'm assuming would include some kind of product manager? Am I making sense? Can you kind of clarify that for us?
Yeah, and that is a great question, Michael. Thank you for asking it, because a lot of companies, I'll just say, get this wrong. A lot of companies say project manager is the same as Scrum Master, so let's take the project manager, make them a Scrum Master, and then everything's fine. We just change the name of it, but it's still the same thing. So a Scrum, and that's not what you want to do. So Scrum Master and project manager are very different. A project manager leads a project, and I have this in my background too. You lead a project more with authority. You own the project plan, and you're passing out all the activity cards to everybody. Everyone does this, this, this. We keep it on track with the big Gantt chart, all that stuff. That's a very top-down push model to get things done.
Yeah.
So Scrum and Agile leadership is the opposite. Imagine if the team was the boss, and now we have a Scrum Master here who's not a project manager, but in the industry, we call it a servant leader, or a leader who serves. So now the Scrum Master is not the owner of the project plan and giving it, and has to be the smartest person in the room to constantly keep the project on track and keep everybody busy and all that stuff, traditional project management. The Scrum Master is the opposite. The Scrum Master says, okay, we have a team that's capable of delivering good value. They're the boss. How can I, as a Scrum Master, serve the team? Let me observe them. Let me see what they're struggling with. Okay, maybe they're struggling because they don't have a certain area of expertise. Maybe we need to hire someone on the team. Okay, I'm going to raise that up as what we call as an impediment. I'm going to raise that as an impediment. You know, we're doing good stuff, but we need another team member with XYZ expertise because that would allow us to move faster as a team. So then that gets raised up as an impediment. It goes back to you, or the product owner is what it's called, the person who holds the vision. And it says, hey, can we get another person on the team? Maybe the answer is no. If the answer is no, okay, how can the team adapt without having that person there? So the Scrum Master is this knowledgeable observer and communicator who is, in the Scrum terms, they say a leader who serves, but they're serving the delivery team. Why? Because the delivery team is the team that's creating the unit of value that's going to go to the customer, right? A vision's great, but if you don't create anything with the vision that's tangible that can affect the customer's life, you're just thinking, right? We haven't made an impact. So the Scrum Master helps coordinate that impact, and it pours right through the rest of the organization. They also, I mentioned at the beginning, lead by example. A Scrum Master is an Agile leader, and they lead by example. And by example, they are a leader who serves the team. They show the rest of the organization, yourself included, how to be a leader who serves the team that's delivering the product or the value to the customer. So it's an upside down hierarchy model, if you can put it that way. Like the CEO serves the team too. The marketing officer serves the team. The VP of marketing serves the team. Everybody serves the team because you gave the team that spark, that vision. Create this essence of a product and start getting something out to the customer. Learn from the customer. That way it front loads your company to be able to do rapid experimentations or rapid iterations of delivering something to the customer, learning from that, adapting, and doing it again. It's perfect application for a startup.
So okay, so we've got our delivery team that's working on developing the product. You know, so you've gotten some of the senior leadership folks have developed the vision, developed the strategy. They've created this first delivery team, which might have project manager, someone to kind of driving the product development side, and you have someone helping to drive the revenue product side. How does one go about again, you know, we've got this small company, 25 people. How do we go about identifying who is to be the Scrum Master? Is that someone internal from within the organization, or do they need to go external? Again, really just trying to give this some full legs here in terms of that initial team. So we've got the delivery team. So how do we identify who is an appropriate person to be a Scrum Master? What is it, internal, or do we need to go external? Again, thinking about the small 25-person company that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be the first Scrum Master, the first Scrum team in 2 different organizations in my career. So I've been faced with that. For a small company like that, normally, and I'm working with one of these companies right now. Normally, you would bring somebody in from the outside with expertise. In other words, not someone who's brand new as a Scrum Master from their career, but someone who has a number of years under their belt, so they can handle that, because there's a lot of moving parts in a small company like that, 30, 35 people, 50 people in the organization. There's just a lot of things moving. Like, people have to be able to be flexible and nimble and agile and wear different hats. So to answer your question, you normally I would suggest in your case, you bring someone in from the outside with experience as being a Scrum Master, and also bring in a senior level Agile coach, and maybe just part-time, maybe just a few hours a week or 10 hours a week to help answer all these questions. I'm a senior coach, right? So that what we're talking about here, this is where a senior coach can engage with yourself, other senior leaders, and the Scrum Master and the Scrum team, and they can sort of just help coordinate all that, so the Scrum Master can really land on their feet in that situation, get things up and going. They don't have to have all the answers. The senior Agile coach would have more experience. So the senior Agile coach can sort of just guide everything, make sure everything's nudged and moving in the right direction. And then they can disengage or partially disengage or whatever and let the Scrum Master drive it and go. And it depends on where the company goes. Oftentimes the company then will grow to 2 teams, then 3 teams, then maybe another Scrum Master. So then the coach becomes a full-time coach, and there's things in there. So that's what I'd recommend from the outside. With that said, sometimes companies start from the inside, and I've seen that too. The challenge with that is with a small company, usually you don't have somebody with expertise, so that is a non-starter. But if you did have someone with expertise, it's hard because they've already had a role in that company. And if you're going to have them give up a role in a growing company to try to shift to a Scrum Master, that normally doesn't happen that easily. And it usually causes more friction because they're trying to do both roles at once. Like, let me keep developing the product and be the Scrum Master at the same time. And they straddle the two, and there's role conflict and there's challenges that come along with that.
So that makes a lot of sense to me, Matt, that, okay, with a small company, you establish your kind of first core delivery team so they can focus on doing the work. And I assume you'd have like your project manager and then the necessary roles. So again, if we take this live example, we would have some folks working on some of the product development elements around the product itself, the technology, etc. We start having some of our core folks around some of the marketing and sales, go to market to kind of spearhead those things. And then the Scrum Master can provide that guidance and expertise and helping to do all of those things that a Scrum Master needs to do. So bringing in a person, a fractional, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's often quite feasible, which a lot of small businesses are doing in terms of bringing some of those expertise from a fractional perspective. So that's really quite useful, Matt, in terms of helping to bring to life how do you start using Agile. Any other things with respect to setting up these various teams in terms of things to know from setting up the teams, your various teams, and adopting Agile? Any other things we need to take into account besides, setting up the delivery teams, having, a Scrum Master? Are there any other principles when thinking about setting up the team to kind of get things off the ground and get momentum happening before we move on?
Yeah, just one to answer that question and clarify one of the points, because most people are familiar with project management. You've mentioned it a couple of times, project manager. The project manager actually doesn't exist in the Agile Scrum model.
Okay.
So this is an important setup of the team piece. So how does the project get managed is the question, right? How do we know what we're building and then build it and then learn from that and so forth? So what happens is there's a concept in Agile and Scrum called a product backlog. So that's where yourself or someone who's in the senior product space with the company would, as they call it in Agile, they call it the product owner in Scrum. So you'd be the product owner. So, okay, you're the visionary for the product. Okay, we want the product to have this feature and this feature and this feature, right? You'll dictate that. So the product owner creates this thing called a product backlog. It's a prioritized list of big pieces of items that you want to see delivered as part of the product. It can do this, it can do that, it can do this. And that's where it starts. So that's the beginning of a project plan, but it's just a list. It's a list of big things that you want to accomplish, right? Those big things get broken up. They get prioritized by the product owner. And they get broken up, the top ones that you want delivered first. The first feature, we got to get this one feature out the door. That's the initial launch of the product. We need to get this done. So that's at the top of the product backlog. You'd break that up into smaller chunks of work, and then those would be prioritized. So this prioritized list of work is called the product backlog. That is then socialized with the team, the delivery team, and the delivery team says, okay, we have 2 people. And we have this much time. Okay, I think we can probably pick up like 4 of those work items in the next week. And then we're going to work on those and we're going to start working on them. So that's how and then the plan, and then guess what happens? The team starts working on those 4 items and they only maybe get 2 of them done because things came up. So then they're going to show those 2 items to the customer. Hey, we built this little piece of a feature. What do you think? Customer is going to give feedback. Hey, I like that, didn't like this. Here's some feedback. And then you're going to, and the product owner's involved with this too, this conversation, then you're going to adjust the product backlog. So now you've just changed the project plan, to use the old term for it. You're changing the project plan every single time you iterate through this cycle of customer feedback. So that's where the project plan exists. It exists in a different place, in a different format. It's still there, but there's no project manager because you have a product owner who owns this list of features essentially. And then you have a team that's building those features the best way they know how.
Okay.
So it's not micromanaging. You have to build exactly this, 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 and this. It's like, no, the customer needs the customer needs the customer needs to be able to have 4 users access the system at the same time, or a number of users access. Then the team would figure out how to do that. They'll do it in their own way. The product owner may think one thing. So the details are handled. The details of the execution are handled by the delivery team. The vision and the core pieces of work are kept with the product owner and the overall product backlog.
Okay, so Matt, you've raised a couple of questions in my mind now. So, okay, so we're talking from a product perspective. You've got the product owner. We've got this list of prioritized work. Now, with me being head of go-to-market, working with this client, I'm working across the entire organization. And small businesses are going to be thinking holistically across the business. So, can we, in terms of Agile, can we take this principle of having the product owner and think of it across the various functions? Can this be applied across the business to say, okay, from a product perspective, we've got a product owner, prioritize pieces of work. For service and support, we're going to have some key initiatives, pieces of work, and have an owner for each of those, marketing, sales. So can this principle be adopted across some of the different functional areas, different streams of the business, which are all going to have to be working together in tandem? Is that feasible? Can we apply Agile in that way, or just solely from a product perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So the answer is yes, you can apply it in across all those functions. However, it normally, with the size company you're talking about, under 50 employees, it normally starts with just the delivery team.
Yeah.
And that's where the product owner concept with the backlog of work, et cetera, would apply. And the delivery team normally is the one who's in charge of service and support in the early days too. I mean, they're doing everything.
Okay, so Matt, what you're saying then is that the delivery team is likely going to be a cross-functional team that can right. Okay, that's very important. So it's about that, creating the appropriate cross-functional delivery team that can then work to defining and working to a set of prioritized initiatives. Which, as you're progressing, you can get feedback from your customers, from the market, and then feed that back in. So fantastic. Okay, that really makes a lot of sense and really brings it to life. Okay, so cross-functional team is really going to be quite key, and that makes a lot of sense in terms of the practicality and how you're going to be able to execute from the vision and the overall strategy to make it live and real.
Yep. Exactly right. You got it.
Awesome. Okay. In terms of now, okay, so can you kind of further talk us through? So we've got the vision, we've got our delivery team, we've got our Scrum Master, we've got a cross-functional team, which is going to cover the various key components of the business with this prioritized list of work. Can you maybe provide us some additional insights in terms of do's, don'ts with respect to that list of prioritized, managing those prioritized work lists and things to help kind of manage the work streams and the initiatives and working through that? Are there any key Agile leadership principles just to kind of keep in mind as part of that, that core cross-functional team working through and managing that prioritized list that they've developed and working through?
Yeah, there's a number of aspects of Agile and Agile leadership that factor into that. And what you want to think about is from a delivery point of view. And I'll give you an example too. You want to put the customer, you want to put who you're delivering the product to, or the app, or the value, whatever your company's doing, right? The product.
Yeah.
Who you're delivering that product to, you want them to be front and center. This is a very customer-centric model of delivery. And what I mean by that is you want them, ideally, you want the end customer to be involved in this product development process.
Yep.
The delivery team executes on the delivery, but once a delivery of value has been done, of a feature or part of the product or whatever, you want the customer to weigh in on that and help partner with the product owner to update the product backlog based on what the customer's feedback, and then you go to the next iteration of value delivery. So you're constantly modifying and adjusting, which is part of the agile feedback loop, right? So that there, and I'll give you an example. When I worked at a large manufacturing company, when I was working at Bose Corporation, speakers, headsets, and all this. They started as a startup back in the day. I wasn't there when they were a startup, but they were a larger organization at the time. One of the teams that I was working with when I was a Scrum Master there was a team that helped with the point of sale software for their retail stores at the time. They had a number of retail stores. So you imagine you're in a retail store, you go buy a set of headphones, you go up to the checkout counter, and you have to beep it through, process it, take the order, give them the money, right? And you walk out. So this point of sale in any retail environment, a point of sale software is pretty important, because until that's working, the company can't really sell anything, right? When you're at a mall or at a store and people walk in, they want to buy something, you want the point of sale software is really important that it's working, right? So this particular team was responsible for the point of sale software, and normally it just worked fine every day. And the product owner said, oh, we think we need this feature, that feature. So they started building new features, and they were doing this for a little while, and they thought that they were doing great. But then we came in and we said, hey, why don't we bring the customer closer to the team? Why don't we actually, when we release the next feature, why don't we release it and communicate with one of our customers and hear what they think about it? Did they love it? Did they not like it? Did it make a difference for them? So we started bringing in some retail store managers who were responsible for showing up at 5 a.m. at the store, turning things on, turning the lights on, turning on the point of sale software, right? The real end customer of a point of sale software are the people who are responsible for the store in this particular case. So we started bringing them to, there's a concept called a sprint review. So when you do a sprint of activity, they call it a sprint. We do a week of work worth of work, 2 weeks worth of work. You do a chunk of work that's time boxed, and then you do a review of that work with your stakeholders, with the product owner, with the people who care about what you just built. So we started bringing that retail store manager to this sprint review, and we started learning, and as a Scrum Master and as a team, we started learning amazing things. We all thought we were smart, like, oh, the product owner has a great vision, and we're building this cool stuff, and yet we built it and it has good quality. But then we found out that we weren't solving the real problems that the store needed. We were delivering features that were not their top priority features because we weren't close enough to the customer. So by bringing the customer close in and saying, hey, customer, what do you think about this? We just delivered this feature. And what we learned very quickly early on is that, oh, that feature looks really nice, but what I really care about is that this software turns on in less than 15 minutes, because when I show up at the store, right now it's taking a half hour to load. And I have to show up at the store an extra half hour early just to be able to turn this software on. So then we realized that speed of boot up was the most important feature. So we focused in on that. So that's an example of bringing a customer closer to the delivery team. So I talked about leading, a leader who serves. Everyone's focused on servant leadership. We're all serving the development team. The development team is actually serving the customer. Yep. Right? So if you think about it, this puts the customer as the boss. The customer's in charge of everything. We're listening to the customer, and the delivery team does everything they can do to deliver value to that customer in a bigger way. And the whole organization supports the delivery team to more effectively deliver that value to the customer. That's how we change lives with an agile leadership model.
And that makes complete sense. So just kind of circling back. So we've got, making sure we've got the clear vision, the clear strategy, the plan of where you're looking to grow, creating that the appropriate cross-functional delivery team, bringing in that Scrum Master to provide some guidance to that team, making sure you're understanding and mindful of who that end customer is, and understanding what their needs and requirements are, which is what I often work with clients on, doing that necessary listening at both a market level and customer level. So we're very clear as we're undertaking our initiatives, ultimately who we're seeking to serve and what outcomes that we're trying to achieve, both for the business, but also for the customer in mind. Then undertaking, and as we're undertaking and then developing based on what we're trying to achieve, developing your prioritized list of initiatives. And then you brought up now as well, having regular reviews of work, sprint reviews, so we can see how we're going. Also incorporating gaining customer feedback as well, which can then be circulated throughout the team, the delivery team, and across the leadership team as well, because I believe that all of that has to be in hand, so we can have the necessary iterations to be making sure that we're constantly moving in a customer-centric manner to be meeting our objectives. So that's fantastic, Matt. You've really helped that to become quite live and real. In terms of folks, businesses that are looking to get started, are there any what are some key tips to get started? Are there any particular tools, things they should be reading, things they should be doing as they're looking to embark on starting to adopt Agile as a way of managing, operating and managing their initiatives or projects moving forward? How does a small business that wants to start thinking and operating, what are some of the initial next steps that they can do to get started from here?
Yeah, the way that's a great question. Your recap of everything that I shared is brilliant, Mike. I'm just very impressed with your ability to put all these new terms, words, etc., that I threw out there, and then your recap was right on. So I'm impressed with your ability to synergize the information. To answer your question, what you want to do is you want to reach out to someone in the Agile community, like an Agile coach like myself, someone else in the Agile community. Sometimes you might have one in your company who's like super big proponent of Agile, and they're plugged into a community of practice. They're plugged into like a local group that gets together, or they're plugged into an online group or some type of thing. Mostly, to answer your question more directly, the way that usually happens to set you up for success is you reach out to an external experienced coach and you say, hey, can you give us some advice in this particular situation? Can you work with us for a little bit as we mold the clay here and really start to get this first team going? And even that, and typically the way companies do it is they'll bring on a consulting firm that focuses on Agile. If they're a bigger company, if they're a smaller company like you're talking about, you bring in an experienced Agile coach, and they can help lay the groundwork for how this gets set up. If you want to retain that coach, they can stay on board and then start to coach the initial team and the initial people coming up on board. But the coach's vision is not to stay there forever. They're there to help you get set up properly and to start to fade into the background as your team gets set up and your Scrum Master becomes more on their feet and rolling. And then before you know it, it's always good to have a coach. We can all use coaches in all aspects of our lives.
Absolutely.
Coaches, therapists. There's always a lot of good people out there who can support you. But that's generally how you get started. You contact an Agile coach and you'd say, can you help me organize this and set us up for success? And they can help you strategize what you need to do. And then you can either do it on your own, or you can bring in someone else to be your full-time Scrum Master, however you do it.
Okay, that's a great advice. So it sounds like, once we've got our vision, we've got our strategy, and once you're at that point of setting up that initial delivery team, it's at that point is to get a professional to help guide you and get you started on the journey right from the get-go. Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much. This has been a very valuable, insightful, and very practical conversation about how we as small business owners can really leverage Agile leadership principles to really incorporate into our business. For our viewers and listeners that want to learn more and connect with you, how can they learn more and connect with you, Matt?
Yeah, so reaching me on LinkedIn is the best way to go. If my name is a little crazy, you can go to agilegamechangers.com. So, and we'll probably put a link in there as well, but AGILE is how it's spelled, but agilegamechangers.com. That'll give you a link to our LinkedIn for our company page. From there, you can get to my personal page, but Matt Zimbrowski on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn, whether it's our company page or my personal page, connecting with me directly there is the best way to get things going and to keep in touch. And I'd love to connect with anyone in your audience, Michael. This is always a topic I'm passionate about talking about, helping others on it, whether it's an individual trying to grow their career more quickly in the Agile space, or whether it's a company trying to get the right people there or trying to get the right structure as we're talking about organization. I have a lot of experience in those areas, and I love helping set up the companies and the individuals for success.
Well, this has been fantastic, Matt. It's truly going to be a benefit to our listeners, because, small businesses, looking to grow, you've got to innovate to grow. And as part of being that innovation, it's going to be undertaking new big initiatives. Not all the time, but quite often it is undertaking new initiatives, developing new products, services, and solutions, which is a big thing I'm going to be talking about in the upcoming May B2B Innovation Challenge. And so what you're doing is really all about enabling them to execute on that. Well, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. To learn more about B2B insights, about how you can build and grow your small, medium B2B company, please do check out my website, listeninnovategrow.com, and stay tuned for further announcements of upcoming events, including some upcoming roundtables, as well as next month in May, we're going to have a B2B Innovation Challenge for small, medium businesses. We're going to be taking you through how do you listen, understand the market, and then turn that into driving into developing your innovation roadmap of developing the right kinds of products, services, solutions, and right kind of B2B marketing to drive your success. I'm Michael Haynes. Thank you so much. And till next time, bye for now.